Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar for today, Moving to 3D with BricsCAD Direct Modeler. My name is Don Strimbu. With me, my colleagues Julie Caveri and Heidi Hewitt and Robert Green. They'll all be presenting to you today. And just off stage, Ana Maria Romeo is here standing by to help answer your questions. So today we'll talk about first, briefly, what is BricsCAD? And then the core of the presentation, moving to 3D using the direct modeling tools in BricsCAD. And that presentation will be delivered by Julie and Heidi. And then Robert will come back and wrap it up with the compatibility and value story around BricsCAD. So let's get started. Who is Bricsys? Well, we're a global provider of affordable, modern CAD, BIM, mechanical design, and common data environment products brought to market under the BricsCAD and Bricsys 24/7 brands. We're a part of Hexagon AB, which gives us great reach. But even before we became a part of Hexagon, we still had Bricsys product users in over 110 countries. The headquarters for Bricsys is in Ghent, Belgium, with 200 Bricsys employees in over 8 countries. So we've got the reach we need to meet your needs. What is BricsCAD? It's a family of CAD products, the cost-effective alternatives to the popular CAD or LT-CAD, BIM, and mechanical design products that you use today. And that word family is very important. Imagine 2D, 3D, BIM, and mechanical design in a single product. That's the one that we call BricsCAD Ultimate. The 30-day free trial of BricsCAD is delivered to you as BricsCAD Ultimate. So when you download and try BricsCAD, you get all of these products in a single installer package. When you buy, your license code enables the addition of BricsCAD that you purchased. So download it once and you're ready to go. You can convert your trial to production by simply entering a valid license key. And it's all backed up by Bricsys 24/7, our cloud-based collaboration and data storage environment. In the BricsCAD product, in each edition, the 24/7 panel is a part of the product. So it allows you to communicate with your colleagues, preview files, share files, upload, download, vault, and version files, all through the Bricsys 24/7 cloud-based common data environment. Why BricsCAD? Well, there are several really important things that you need to know about this product. Number one, it's eminently affordable, and I'll show you more about that in the next slide. It is also highly user interface and user experience compatible with Autodesk's AutoCAD. So therefore, it's very learnable. If you know AutoCAD today, you already know 90+% of BricsCAD. Now, it's also very flexible. We offer license types that many of our competitors have simply abandoned. And after the demo, Robert will tell you a lot more about how easy it is to deploy and manage BricsCAD seats in your company. Let's go back to affordability again and talk for just a moment about price. I want to compare the manufacturer's suggested retail price of BricsCAD Pro versus AutoCAD 2021. So let's build this out first. Imagine a perpetual, yes, my friends, a lifetime perpetual software license of BricsCAD Pro. $850 is the US manufacturer's suggested retail price. We're going to add $255 a year for maintenance to keep you up to date with all the latest releases of BricsCAD. You can see the total over 3 years. Now, if you decide that you actually do want to subscribe to BricsCAD, well, that's fine. We support that also. And maintenance, of course, is included in subscription. It's not a perpetual license. When you stop paying, it stops working. But in many situations, that's the right choice for customers, and we're all about choice. Let's compare BricsCAD Pro to the MSRP of AutoCAD. Now, there's 3 conclusions we can draw directly from this graph. Number one, You can buy a seat, a license of BricsCAD Perpetual for less than 1 year of the cost of AutoCAD. And by the way, that seat of BricsCAD can also be on maintenance and still cost less. BricsCAD maintenance for subsequent years cost about 15% of the cost of a year of AutoCAD subscription. And then finally, and potentially the most important, over 3 years, BricsCAD costs less than a single year of AutoCAD subscription. And that's not all. We have the most flexible licensing model. We like to say your license is your way, your choice, BricsCAD. Perpetual license live on at Brixis because you told us this is what you wanted, the security of a perpetual license with optional software maintenance. Of course, if you want to subscribe, we'll be glad to do that, and we'll make it easy and affordable for you to subscribe to BricsCAD. Now, a single BricsCAD license also supports any language version in any location. You don't need to ask our permission to use your BricsCAD license in a different place. And we won't charge you extra for that privilege either. And many customers have come to BricsCAD simply because of the power of our network and volume multi-user licensing. You choose the mix. You choose the right licensing model for your organization. We're here because of you, and our license offerings totally reflect our customer-centric nature. Now, all of this is fine, but if it's hard to learn, wow, that's going to be a different problem. So a story that Robert can elaborate on in his presentation, he does a lot of lunch and learn sessions with our larger customers. We bring people in for an hour with their laptops. We offer them lunch and a beverage. And within an hour, they're ready to go back to their desk and start using BricsCAD. You can be comfortable AutoCAD users in 1 hour with BricsCAD and proficient in an afternoon. The high compatibility is the key. Keyboard shortcuts, menus, list routines, sheet sets, templates, and of course, your drawing files are all highly compatible with BricsCAD. It's an all-in-one CAD platform. Start in 2D, move to 3D, BIM, or mechanical design without relearning your foundation. So keeping training costs down today for 2D CAD and tomorrow for 3D modeling and BIM, that's the core of the BricsCAD story. BricsCAD makes it easy to move from 2D to 3D in a single product, but don't listen to us. Here's what Risto Gunchev, the managing director of Prototype, an architectural facade manufacturer with 85 licenses of BricsCAD says, and I quote, "If you're an engineer who is used to working in 2D, it is much easier to start working in 3D with BricsCAD than with any other tool, because you can just follow the same intuitive pattern." This idea of user interface and user experience commonality is the core of the learnability of BricsCAD, and you'll see that example next in the demonstration. I'd like to invite Julie to the stage, and then she'll invite Heidi, and between the two of them, they'll take you through making the move from 2D to 3D with BricsCAD Direct modeling. Julie, I'm going to switch the screen over to you, and you should have it.
I do. Thank you so much, Don.
We see you.
Oh, good. Perfect. So I'm going to start with a quick overview of direct modeling in BricsCAD. I'm using BricsCAD Pro Edition here, and I'm also using the modeling workspace. And this will be a very quick mechanical example. Direct modeling operations apply to all ACES solid geometry, whether it's created here in BricsCAD. Well, let's try that again. Let's do it this way. Whether it's created in BricsCAD or if it's imported from another program. And it's CAD accurate, so we can go in and enter exact values. Now, for those of you that might be familiar with some other solid modeling programs, you're going to see some tools that are very familiar, but we'll also see some tools that are unique to BricsCAD. And because of these tools that are familiar, you'll see how easy and comfortable and familiar it is to model in BricsCAD. Now, all of these operations are performed in an interactive mode. So what that means to you is that you will see this preview result of the options of the operations immediately and dynamically. So for example, here again, if we just draw a circle, I can either extrude that out, or I can just punch it through to create a hole through the whole model. Now, one of the tools that is unique to BricsCAD is this. This is the quad cursor menu. And this is a panel that uses machine learning algorithms, and it observes what I'm doing, and then it makes suggestions based on what I'm hovering over or what I've selected. So it kind of learns what I'm doing and makes the appropriate suggestions. It's actually really pretty cool. Now let's just quickly add a couple of fillets here, and those are quick and easy to do as well. And whether I'm adding one at a time or if I add several at once. And then we'll see that, and then we'll add one more to the front. And we'll do that. And then once that fillet's added, I can even use the push-pull tool to modify that, because I can actually also manipulate the general shape of the model and not lose the integrity of the model, unlike history-based modeling, which is sometimes easy to break. Now let's move on to a more finished version of this, because I need to start thinking about some output for 2D paper drawings. And the first thing that I want to do is to add a section plane, and we'll just use an orthographic front view to kind of get an idea of what's going on. And I've also already created a layout with my title block. And we've talked about that in previous webinars too. But now I can very quickly create some standard views of the 3D model using ViewBase and place them on the sheet. And now I can start to use some very familiar annotation tools to start to annotate this. Probably tools that you're using today. So we'll put some dimensions on here. And again, these should all look very familiar, very comfortable, very to what you're already using today and what you already know today. So Don, let's give Heidi the screen. She's going to show an architectural example of direct modeling, also using BricsCAD Pro, and also using many of the same tools that I've just given you a quick demonstration of in the mechanical example. She'll use them in the architectural example.
Awesome. Heidi, you have the screen.
Great, thanks, Dawn. Make sure I share the right one. Okay, so Julie showed you creating the mechanical example from scratch, going right into 3D, but we know that many of you have been using 2D, probably for decades in many cases, and may not have any experience with 3D. So I want to show you how you can start with your 2D drawings and go straight into 3D with that same geometry, so that you can reuse what you already have, both your drawing data as well as your experience and knowledge of commands. So here I have a 2D floor plan of a duplex. This is just one of the floors. And I'm going to show you how to get from that to at least part of the 3D model. I don't have time in this presentation to show the whole thing, but I will show you the tools that would enable you to model pretty much everything in this entire 3D model. So starting with the 2D model, well, the first thing we're going to do is change our workspace. And Julie already showed you she was working in the modeling workspace. What we see right here is the drafting workspace, familiar tools, if you're coming from other applications such as AutoCAD. Same with the modeling workspace. If I go over to the modeling workspace, it looks very familiar, but it gives you easy access to all your 3D modeling tools. Now, there are a lot of different things that I can do to take this 2D geometry into 3D. If we change the viewpoint, I'm just going to use the Shift key and middle mouse button, but I could also use the look from tool over here in the upper right corner to change to an isometric view. And we can see that this is just a flat drawing, okay? What I want to do is just select some key geometry. Now I can use my typical commands, my selection tools that I'm used to in 2D. So I'll select some of just the wall geometry, and then I want to choose or select similar, so I get all the other wall geometry, and I'm going to isolate it. So those are all familiar commands. Now I can see these entities here in just the main entities in 3D. So there are a lot of tools that I can use to create these or turn them into 3D entities. For example, an easy and obvious one is the Extrude tool. Now I can access that from my ribbon, or I could type extrude, or as you saw from Julie's demo, we also have this quad cursor. And what I can do, as long as I have boundary detection enabled, and that's one of the toggles up here at the top, boundary detection, if that's enabled, then as I pass my cursor over this 2D geometry, BricsCAD automatically detects boundaries. Even if I don't have a closed polyline, it can detect and temporarily create a closed boundary there, and it offers me in the quad the extrusion tool. So of course I could launch it in other ways, but very easily there I'm able to launch it right from the quad. Now I can extrude it up and I can enter an exact value. Doesn't really matter because as you saw Julie demonstrate earlier, I can always push, pull, and modify this geometry later. Now again, moving into the 3D environment, one thing you'll want to be aware of is your visual styles. Instead of using the default 2D wireframe visual style, you'll want to use one of these other ones that are meant more for 3D. And for now, I'll use the modeling visual style. Makes it a little bit easier to visualize your geometry. So I could continue extruding these other walls up using that same tool, but I want to show you various methods because there are a lot of different ways, different tools that you can use, and the tool that you choose just depends either on the type of geometry you already have or what it is you're trying to accomplish. For example, I might want to draw some new walls or trace these existing walls, and maybe I had single line geometry representing the wall. In that case, I couldn't really extrude it because it's just a single line, but what I could do is maybe use the polysolid tool. I'll go ahead and select that, and if you look at the command line, you'll see it looks very much like polyline, except that it's for 3D. So using polysolid, I'll go ahead and pick where I want to start tracing, and you can see it's already starting to draw that what looks like a polyline. It's not quite where I want it as far as the justification, excuse me, but in BricsCAD, we have this handy tool called the Hotkey Assistant. And you can see it here at the bottom, excuse me, and it's giving an indication that if I press the control key, I can toggle between different options. Here I have the justification options. So it doesn't matter, I don't have to think ahead of time which justification, because that can really be tricky in other applications to know, do I want right or left justification? It depends which way I drag the cursor. So using the control key, I can easily drag, even after I've started drawing my polysolid, I can specify what that justification is. And I can, of course, change the width, and I could type the height. I could enter that ahead of time or have it pre-entered. But in this case, I'm just going to finish off my polysolid, my 2D version of it, and then it prompts me to enter the height. So again, it just feels like drawing a polyline. There's even an arc option in there if you want to have arcs in the middle of it. But then it has the height option as well. Okay, so I could continue modeling with these same tools, extruding or drawing polysolids, but again, it depends what it is you're trying to accomplish. Maybe I don't care about the interior of the building and all I want are some solids, some masses that represent either a massing model of the drawing, or I just want the exterior, so I don't really care about the detail on the inside. In that case, maybe you want to start with solids, similar to what Julie was doing with the mechanical example. So I'm going to use the box tool. And again, this feels like I'm drawing in 2D. It's like drawing a rectangle. I snap using my plain old object snaps. But it's got the difference here is that now it's got the option for me to enter the height. So I'll go ahead and enter a height there. And I'm just drawing the basic shape of this townhouse. And if we look back at the model, you'll see I'm kind of starting to draw this basic shape, okay? Whoops. So I'll do a box again for this other part of the model. Again, using my object snaps, feels like drawing a rectangle, but I give it height. Now I have these other kind of bump outs from the model, and where it's going to get just a little bit different, but not much, is that I'm going to pay attention to my UCS, the plane that it's drawing on. If I just draw a rectangle somewhere out here in space, by default, it's going to draw it on the XY plane, the same with starting this box. But as I pass the cursor over different faces, notice that it highlights in orange. So that's the current UCS that it's going to use. Drawing my new box for this bump out, what I'm going to do is just highlight that face, which it does automatically by passing over. And then again, using my entity snaps and acquired points and my polar tracking, all of those things that I use in 2D, I'm just automatically using them in 3D, but I'm using them on this different face that it automatically found. Okay, so I just pick a point. Again, feels like drawing a rectangle, but it's actually drawing the base of a box that I then extrude out. Okay, I'll repeat that one more time over here. And again, it's a different face, different UCS, but it finds it for me automatically, letting me take advantage of my 2D experience using it in 3D. Okay, I find the intersection there. Oops, made the wrong snap. So acquire that again. Find my intersection, drag over, and again, acquire another point on the other side. So everything that I'm used to doing in 2D, I just happen to be doing it on another 3D face. Okay, now after I've created these, I can always modify them. So maybe I didn't pay a lot of attention to how high this box is, how high it starts. But after a while, as I work on my design, I realize that I want that distance between the bottom of this box and the bottom of the main box to be a specific distance. So I'm going to go ahead and just selecting, not launching a command, I'm simply going to select the bottom of those two boxes. It gives me the shortest distance between those two boxes, which is helpful. It's like an inquiry type command, but I can also enter a value, and I'm going to select actually the big box first and then the smaller box, because when I enter that value, it's actually going to adjust that second face so that it moves to the exact distance that I specified. So this is really an easy way for you to continue working on your design without thinking right away or having to know right away what the dimensions are, what the sizes are. Okay, so I'm starting to get the shape here. I used the box tool. Now I want to use some other primitive objects. And when you look at these, it seems like how useful can those be for something real world, the very basic shapes. But you'll see as we start putting these basic building blocks together that we can get a very realistic looking building or part or whatever it is that we're designing. All right, so using the wedge tool, again, this feels like drawing a rectangle in 2D, but it has the benefit of having a 3D height. So I'm going to go ahead and start my wedge by snapping using my traditional 2D entity snaps, and then it pulls up one edge of this that I can enter a value in and always modify it later. Now, this is representing sort of the beginning of my roof, but what I want to do is mirror this one wedge to the other side. Okay, I could draw another wedge, but instead I'm going to use the mirror tool. Now, I could use the manipulator. Normally when I'm modeling in 3D, even when I'm working in 2D, the manipulator in BricsCAD is super powerful. It's sort of like the gizmo in that other application, except the manipulator in BricsCAD works great in 2D and 3D, and it has even more capability. For example, I can move, rotate, copy, mirror, scale, repeat at the same increments, super powerful. But instead of using that today, we could do a whole session just on the manipulator. That's how powerful it is. But instead, I want to show you how to use what you already know in 2D and how easy it is to continue working in 3D with that experience that you have. So what would you do if you wanted to get this same entity over to the other side? You'd probably mirror it in 2D. Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to type MI. I think Julie or Dawn mentioned that you can use your same aliases, and you can do that in BricsCAD. So I just typed MI for the mirror command. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick my base, or my first point of the mirror line and my second point, and it automatically mirrors there. Okay, so just like I did in 2D, now I'm going to go ahead and union these together just to make them one part instead of two. So I'll use my union tool, select those two entities. And again, there are a lot of different ways I could model this. I could redraw my wedges over on another part of the building, but instead I'm going to use what I already know, which is copy and rotate and scale, those same commands that I use in 2D all the time. So I'm going to use copy. I'll just type CO for my plain old 2D copy command. Use my entity snaps from the midpoint to another midpoint. Okay, and I'll go to another midpoint again to copy this roof to the other part of the building that I want. Okay, so that was just the plain old copy command. Now I'm going to use the plain old rotate command. And I pick my base point. Now again, this is where you want to be careful in 3D because the face that it highlights, that's the face it's going to rotate on. So I want it to make sure it's got a plane that's parallel to my typical UCS plane if that's the rotation that I want to use. Okay, so this is the plane that it highlights. I simply select my point that I want to rotate about. And again, I'm not doing anything special here. It's using object snaps. It's using polar, ortho, those same tools that I always use. Okay, rotate, pick my base point. Okay, and again, I'll just drag it out, snaps to the right angle there. I could type an angle, of course, as well. Okay, so that was copy, that was rotate. Now we're going to do a scale. And all of these tools, everything I'm showing you right now, I could also do with the manipulator. Okay, so using scale, I want to scale from that location, that midpoint. I'm going to use the reference option. Hopefully many of you have used reference for 2D. It's a great tool to use if you don't know the exact scale to enter, the value to enter. And I'm just going to scale this up. And I'll repeat this one more time for this one down here. Again, base point for my scale operation is the midpoint. Use the reference option from the midpoint to the end of that and scale it up. Okay, so a lot of different ways I could accomplish this, but this way is using what I already know in 2D. All right, now going back to direct modeling in 3D, I want to extend these wedges out to the rest of the building. So I'll use push-pull, which I used previously, and Julie also showed you. So press pull, use my object snaps, automatically snap to the end of the building. Okay, really easy. Now I also want to extend out this other part, this other wedge over here into the roof here. Now, if you did that in your other application, you can do it, but it's quite a few steps, and you have to really understand what your options are. For example, if I did this previously in my other former CAD application, I would probably push-pull the space way into the other wedge here. And then I might use interfere or intersect, or I might create another copy of the roof and subtract it. But I'd have to really be very familiar with all the tools that are available to choose which one might work best, or which combination, because it would take multiple steps. But with BricsCAD, it's very easy. I can just use my connect tool, select the faces that I want to connect together, and it will take that first face that I select and extend it right into the other face. It doesn't go all the way into the building, it just goes right up to that face, which is exactly what I wanted. Okay, so now I want to show you, I could keep on adding more wedges and boxes and modify this building to look exactly how I want, but I want to show you just a couple more tools. So I'll just kind of save the rest of the modeling for another time. And instead, what I'm going to do is union all this existing geometry together so that I have just one solid there. And the reason I did that is because it makes it really easy for me then to use the Thicken tool to create the roof for this. So using Thicken, I simply select the faces that I want to thicken, And I'll just pick all these top faces that should have a roof on them. And then as I drag the cursor out, I can enter a value there. So I'll just drag it up a little bit and enter the value that I want to thicken. It automatically creates a new solid on top of that, okay? And then for now, I'm just going to go ahead and hide that roof so I can focus on the walls. So the roof is hidden. I've got the walls here, and I'm going to use one more command that I'll introduce you to, which is the shell tool. And again, if you've done modeling in AutoCAD, this is very familiar. Okay, so the shell tool, I might have started with just wanting a massing model, but now, this could just as well be a piece of furniture, or it could be some mechanical part. Now I really want it to start looking more like a building. So I'm going to use the shell tool and shell out this solid so that it has a wall thickness, these exterior walls. What I'm doing is removing everything that represents, all the faces that represent the roofs as well as the floor, because those will have slabs on them. So all I really want to do is shell the walls. And I'll enter the shell distance. And just like that, I've turned what looked like some mechanical part, some big solid, into something that looks a lot more like a building. I can turn my roof back or show all my entities again so I see the roof. And then I can continue with all these tools that I've shown you, which really was just a small set of the tools that are available in BricsCAD. But I can continue using these and like push-pull and continue making my model much more detailed and looking more like the final design that I want, which I'll switch over to. Okay, so here we have, I think there's probably nothing in this model with the floor slabs, the interior walls, all of these additions to it. There's nothing in here that you couldn't do with the tools I showed you in just the last 15 or so minutes. So I have it a little further along here though, because I want to show you now how you might take a 3D model. Now we went from 2D to 3D. You may want to go from 3D back to 2D, or maybe you started with 3D like Julie did and you want to go into 2D. Julie showed you one method where you could create views for that mechanical model she was using, but there's another method that I can show you as well. And that is the same that you have in your other application, and that is the section plane tool. So using section planes, I could create section planes in different ways, but I'll choose the orthographic option. And I'll maybe create a top section plane. That lets me create something that's more like a floor plan. I'll also create one more section, and I'll do a right section plane. So that would be more like a section view through the drawing. Now I can, of course, select any of these sections and I can change their location. Maybe I want to move it a little bit to get a better view of the drawing, or depending what area, what part that I want to show. Let me select that one more time. Pick the floor plan. Now the building is still there. It's just automatically, if I have the clipping turned on, then it's automatically clipping it away. Okay, so again, here's my section this way. I could flip the direction that we see it. So very flexible. And again, you might be familiar with this from your other CAD application. Now with this, if I want to see the whole building, that's not a problem. I can simply select a section plane, and maybe I turn off the clipping. So I don't want it to clip it. Same with the other section. But to get to 3D then, it doesn't matter if I have it clipped or not. I can select any section that I want to produce a 3D drawing from, or I'm sorry, a 2D drawing from, select that section and use this tool to create a section plane from a block, or create a block from a section plane. I select that tool, and now I can place that. This is a block. It's linked to the section plane. So if the section plane moves, or if I update the model, then I can automatically update the block to reflect the changes. Or if I want to continue working on this block the way that I would with my traditional CAD tools, my 2D annotation tools, I can do that. I can continue annotating it. If I need to make changes to the actual geometry, I can always explode this block and get it as detailed or looking exactly the way that I want. But it gives me a great starting point rather than drawing it completely from scratch. Okay, so I ran through that quickly, but again, those are just a few tools. You can see we have many more tools up here in the 3D modeling workspace to help you create your 3D models. That's in core BricsCAD. I've just been using the BricsCAD Pro license. I'm going to hand it back over to Julie to show you how you can take your model even further, applying what you already know, but taking advantage of BIM.
Okay,
Julie?
thank you, Heidi. Yes, thank you, Don. You got my screen there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okie doke. So as Heidi mentioned, everything that she did and what I did previously was done with the BricsCAD Pro Edition. Now I've switched to BricsCAD BIM, and I'm also using the BIM workspace, and that gives me some additional tools. And this is Heidi's model. She emailed it to me, and I simply opened it in BricsCAD BIM, because remember, this is all DWG. So with the BIM license, I have some additional tools. One of them is Quick Draw, and Quick Draw can be used to model from scratch. As we've seen previously, we can also use it to trace over 2D geometry to create a 3D model. But this is more than just 3D geometry, because I have walls. And I can take those two walls and I can choose how they're going to connect, again, using this Hotkey Assistant that Heidi mentioned, and toggle through a couple different options, a mitered connection or some squared connections, and just hit enter when I find the connection that I like. Now, Quick Draw automatically applies the intelligence of BIM right from the start by not only creating those walls, but also creating the slabs. And I can also see that here in the structure browser. We can see that we've got building elements that have been created automatically through Quick Draw. They've been classified. So that's all wonderful, but how do we take Heidi's model that she's created in Pro and turn that into a BIM model? Well, it's actually quite easy with BricsCAD BIM, because we can use Bimify. You might remember Bimify from previous webinars too. Remember that it automatically classifies those 3D solids in the entire model into those building elements, and we can see actually that it created building 2 with those floors and walls and slabs. Now, even though all this classification is done automatically, if for whatever reason you want to change a classification, you can do that too by just selecting a different classification for an item. Also, Bimify creates my initial section and elevation planes for me much quicker than I could ever do manually. Now, one other tool that we have with the BIM license is the components panel. And this is going to allow me to insert windows and doors and other 3D content into my model.
Now, as Julie's doing that, I just want to emphasize that while this all looks so magical and advanced, one of the things that I love about BricsCAD and the fact that the BIM environment is simply an additional license level to the core BricsCAD functionality. What I love about that is that as Julie's accessing this content library of doors and windows, those were defined using real core functionality like block type functionality, layers, parametrics, so things that you're used to using in core. It's simply taking advantage of those and automating the process, in this case for a BIM environment.
And of course, as I added these doors and windows, we can see that they've automatically been classified as those doors and windows. So this is just a quick example of how you can start to create a BIM model from either a 2D plan or a 3D solid. And now when you're ready to create those 2D documentation drawings, as Heidi said, you're going from 2D to 3D and maybe back to 2D, there are additional tools for both the BIM edition and the mechanical editions that help to automate those tasks. With that, I'm going to send it back to Don, but please, if anyone has any questions, you can type them into the question box and we'll be happy to answer them for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Julie. That was really great. Robert Green, I'm going to invite you to take the stage. And again, a reminder, folks, if you have any questions, please key them into the question box, and we'll be glad to get answers to you as quickly as we possibly can. Mr. Green, take it away.
Good deal. Do you see my screen, Don?
10-4.
Excellent. So I hope you enjoy what you're seeing with BricsCAD so far, and thanks very much for joining us today. As the Director of Implementation, it is my job to make sure that people can have a positive experience onboarding with BricsCAD and bringing it into your organization. So a few moments to close the presentation out before we go to Q&A. Very cognizant of the fact that when I talk to companies, a lot of people don't know that much about BricsCAD. So there's a few things that we always want to talk about, and I'll just cover those briefly now. Have a quick look. First thing is we are a DWG-based system. We do not import DWGs. We don't have to export DWGs. We simply read them and save them. So exactly the same way you're already used to with your existing CAD application, you work in just the same way. You can install BricsCAD. 5 minutes from now, you can be opening and saving DWG files that you've been working on for years. It's just that simple, really. And from a BIM point of view, we store all of our BIM information in the DWG file. However, all of our BIM information is formatted using Industry Foundation Classes, or IFC. So if you want to take anything out of BricsCAD BIM and send it to another BIM tool somewhere using OpenBIM or perhaps Revit or another tool like that, you can simply write out the IFC. We are IFC by default because that's how we store our information. So everything that you'll see in BricsCAD is using industry standard open data formats, nothing proprietary. Now, we're not trying to lock you in. We want you to use BricsCAD because you like BricsCAD, not because you're trapped. Now let's talk a little bit about compatibility. We understand that there is no way you're ever going to leave your existing application and come to BricsCAD unless it's easy to do so. And you got a hint of some of that watching Heidi and Julie work, because the interface for BricsCAD should look very familiar to you. But let's just go ahead and spell out a few details on that here for a moment. We're going to allow you to bring over your CUI files so that things like aliases and ribbons and menus transfer. You can bring over your tool palettes. You can bring over your Lisp files and load them directly in and run them without modification in almost all cases. You can migrate your ARX code, VBA code. You can bring over sheet sets. You can use existing templates. You can drag and drop in your existing plotter configurations and page setups. You're simply not going to have to start over with BricsCAD. You're going to bring those custom components, those things that your users already know and understand. You're going to be able to use them in BricsCAD straight away. So we're as compatible as we can possibly be, both from a DWG standpoint and from a customization standpoint. Now, let's look a little bit at the 3D specifics that we talked about today. Now, a lot of times I'll call doing 3D in AutoCAD a 2.5D experience. And the reason for that is we use these types of commands. You use the standard 2D commands you're already familiar with. You tend to work a lot with polylines. You convert things into regions and boundaries. And then by carefully manipulating where your UCS plane is, you can do things like extrudes and revolves and sweeps. And then you can add, subtract, union those resulting 3D objects together. So you'll be able to do all of those types of things in BricsCAD because the commands that we support are the same as you're already used to. But my question to you at this point would be, why would you want to do that when you have some of the 3D functionality that you were just shown available to you? For example, did you notice how dynamic UCS and dynamic input meant you never had to worry about where your UCS was? You just hovered over the correct planar face, and BricsCAD took care of it for you. The quad and manipulator functions already knew where the geometry was. They already knew what commands would be appropriate for you to use. So you didn't have to worry about learning an ornate series of menus or ribbon tabs. You were able to edit geometry very easily. Think about the way that Heidi used push-pull operations or that Julie effortlessly filleted that mechanical example on the front end of her demo. There's no history base. The solids don't become bogged down, or they don't operate more slowly as you edit them. You can move all this geometry directly into the BIM tools like you saw today, or our MCAD tool, which you didn't see, but we've looked at in prior webinars. Everything that you were able to do in the BIM tool that Julie showed you, like quick draw, parameterize, BIMify, was easy to operate on, and it required no translation, no manipulation in order to get BricsCAD geometry into it. So everything you've been able to do with DWG and do in a way that you're already used to, but you can use these more powerful functions to gain much more productivity and get a far higher return on your investment in software. Now, over time, what we understand is that you're probably going to want to grow into more advanced usage of BricsCAD. So you can use BricsCAD Pro today and use familiar features and familiar commands today with compatibility for your customized components, and you can get to work with BricsCAD today using the same techniques you always have. And then as you gain confidence, you can move into new features and you can start using new functionalities like some of what Heidi and Julie were showing you today, so that you can become more productive with BricsCAD. And then ultimately you can look at BIM or mechanical tools or upgrade to BricsCAD Ultimate, where you get everything and you can manipulate all your geometry under one package. All this while never leaving a familiar 2D interface and an annotative interface that allows you to draft and produce the finished drawings that are required to actually build things. And what do you have to do in order to have all that software available to you? You just download BricsCAD and install it. The biggest thing you may have to change is a license code. So that if you wanted to upgrade later from BricsCAD Pro today to BricsCAD Pro BIM tomorrow, it's simply a license code upgrade. It's just that simple. You could be done upgrading your BricsCAD to BricsCAD BIM in a matter of minutes. Now, when we talk about deployability and flexibility of licensing, this is something that we are absolutely unique at delivering in today's market. Amongst all the CAD vendors that I have seen, we are offering far, far more capabilities and flexibility to our customers. We still offer perpetual licenses with maintenance. This is a software license that you own, as Don said at the beginning of the presentation. However, we also will offer you subscription. So you can mix and match. You can have some perpetuals, some subscriptions, depending on your workflow and ebb and flow of projects. You can have subscriptions for your BIM, or you could have perpetual licenses for your Pro. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. It should be your choice because it's your business. Customers have asked us for this flexibility, and we will continue to offer it. You can download your BricsCAD software in any language version you like that we support. You can use it from any location that you want. We're not going to penalize you or force you to have additional licenses or contracts to use your software in the language you want from the location of your choice. We still offer network multi-user availability. It's still available. We still offer it. So some people call that concurrent or floating licensing. We still offer it. We have a silent install SCCM friendly deployment kit. We have no named user requirements, so you do not have to create different accounts tied to emails for your users. All this is contained in a single 400 megabyte installer, and that's not a typo. Everything in BricsCAD that you have seen today can be installed from a 408 megabyte installer, and then the product version you use is just based on your licensing activation code. It really is that straightforward, and it really is that flexible. So for CAD managers, it's going to be one of the easier to control tools you've ever worked with, I promise. So having seen this and seeing how powerful and affordable and smart BricsCAD is for 2D, 3D, beyond into BIM and mechanical applications, my question is, why not try BricsCAD for yourself? Why aren't you already using it and reaping the time savings, cost savings, and obtaining all the benefits that you saw today? Well, you should go do that, and you should go do it right now. To do that, you're going to need to download BricsCAD. And to help you see that process, I'm going to hand it back over to Don. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Let me rearrange my screen and change the presenter to me. Make sure I'm showing you the right screen. And there we go. So, Robert, can you see the BricsCAD homepage on my screen?
Indeed, I do.
Well, fantastic. Well, here we go, guys. So super simple, but I want to show it to you just so you see exactly how to get that 30-day free download and what you'll have to do to get it, because we're asking very little from you. Notice in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, a blue link that says download. You'll see it right there. When you press that link, if you don't have a Bricsys account, you will go to our single sign-on page. Now, at this page, you have several options. No Bricsys account, you can register now with your email, or you can use your Facebook or Google credentials. We're also working on LinkedIn credentials for the near future, but these are your choices to create a new account. So once you make that selection, you'll be taken to this simple screen. You're almost there. Just give us your work email, please, password, and confirm it. There's some minor password rules there. When you're done, you will be able to go directly to the download BricsCAD page. You will receive the 30-day free trial, full functional commercial version of BricsCAD Ultimate, which includes all of the features of BricsCAD Classic, Pro, Platinum, BIM, and Mechanical. Agree with the terms of use and download and install. And once you do, on the first launch of BricsCAD, you will see this launcher come up. Now, there are several choices here, but what you actually want to do to start your trial is just click the Start Trial button. It's really that easy. And if you have any questions, all you have to do is reach out. Send us an email at trybricscad@bricsys.com. This is the final webinar. Well, we're offering one more at 8 p.m. this evening, U.S. Pacific, another run of this webinar, but starting next week on June 9th, we'll offer a new webinar with a focus on BricsCAD BIM. You can find out more about all of the events that we offer on our events page. Simply navigate to bricsys.com/events. So, for all of you who joined us today, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure showing you the power and features of today's BricsCAD. We hope you'll take some time to check out the software and see just how easily you can migrate your existing installation to BricsCAD and the amazing savings. And we haven't even talked about the power of BricsCAD, not just the tools you know today, but many new tools. You were shown several of those during the presentation. Powerful tools like the quad cursor that automatically predict the next command you'll need in a series. These are tools that other CAD packages don't offer, but we offer because we're the value leader in drawing-based CAD. Thanks, everybody. Folks, please stay safe, take care of your people, and come and join us again. We'd love to see you on a future webinar. Thank you so much.